Hello and welcome to Newsweek South Asia, your one-stop destination for in-depth analysis of security challenges, regional conflicts, and the evolving threat of terrorism. Let's take a look at the headlines first. Pakistan's air defences shatter terror infrastructure in ruins. India's Operation Sindoor redraws battlefield. Baloch leader declares independence from Pakistan, urges India and UN for recognition. And Bangladesh bans Awami League in unprecedented political crackdown. It's been 2 weeks since India launched its most audacious military operation in decades, Operation Sindoor. Designed to cripple Pakistan's terror ecosystem and dismantle its air combat capabilities, the operation has left Islamabad reeling. With over a dozen air bases decimated, more than 100 terrorists eliminated, and a fifth of Pakistan's air force destroyed, India has redrawn the red lines in South Asia. As the dust settles after a brief ceasefire on May 10th, one fact stands clear. New Delhi's era of strategic restraint is over. Here's our special report on Operation Sindoor, India's precision strike that reset the rules of engagement. The Pahalgam terror attack that killed 26 people, including a Nepali national, was claimed by a proxy of the Pakistan-based Lashkar-e-Taiba. In response, India blamed Pakistan for sponsoring terrorism and suspended the Indus Waters Treaty, citing a breach of the treaty's goodwill clause. While diplomatic measures were swift, India made its military intent clear on May 1st in a call between Indian External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar and US Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Just 6 days later, the Indian Armed Forces launched Operation Sindoor, striking terror hubs deep inside Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, eliminating over 100 terrorists. A day after India carried out precise and coordinated strikes on 9 terror camps in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, Islamabad made desperate attempts to hit military infrastructure and civilian areas in several Indian states with missiles and drones. The Indian military thwarted these attempts and in turn targeted Pakistan's air defences at several locations. India's preemptive strikes under Operation Sindoor marked a turning point in South Asia's military landscape. Over the course of just 90 minutes, India struck 11 Pakistan air bases, crippling the enemy's air defense, command infrastructure and terror hubs.
I have no doubt in my mind that we achieved total surprise, and those strikes across those 9 terror hubs left more than 100 terrorists killed, including high-value targets such as Yusuf Azhar, Abdul Malik Rauf and Mudassir Ahmed that were involved in the hijack of IC-814 and the Pulwama blast.
Among the targets were key air bases in Rawalpindi, Sargodha, Gujranwala, an air defense system in Lahore and Karachi, all struck with precision. High-resolution satellite images have since confirmed large craters on runways, destroyed aircraft shelters and blackened structures that once held critical defense assets. In response, Pakistan launched desperate drone and missile attacks, targeting both Indian military and civilian locations. India's counter-UAS grid and air defense systems neutralized most of these threats. However, minor damage was reported in Udhampur and Firozpur. Pakistan has acknowledged 11 military deaths and 40 civilian casualties. However, India asserts its operations were carried out with surgical precision to avoid civilian harm. Most of the collateral damage, New Delhi says, was the result of terror camps being embedded within civilian zones, a known Pakistani tactic.
Well, to start with, our aim was not to inflict casualties, but in case there have been, it is for them to count. Our job is to hit the target.
The scale of destruction has left Pakistan's Air Force paralyzed. According to Indian government sources, 20% of Pakistan's Air Force assets were destroyed in just 2 days. Indian strikes weren't just symbolic, they were strategic demolitions aimed at decapitating Pakistan's war-fighting capacity. India's precision strikes on Noor Khan Air Base, closest to Islamabad, severed critical VIP and military logistical routes. According to Lieutenant General Rajiv Kai, between May 7th and 10th, at least 35 to 40 Pakistani soldiers were killed in retaliatory Indian fire along the line of control.
There was a concerted effort to target airfields and some very, very important logistic installations, albeit yet again unsuccessful and denied gallantly and efficiently, I must say, by the integrated Indian Air Force and Indian Army Air Defence. We further strengthened our deployment and also initiated some pressure points to send a very clear and unambiguous message to the other side to desist from any misadventures on land. Some of the airfields and dumps saw repeated attacks in waves from the air. All were thwarted. The Pakistan Army has reported to have lost approximately 35 to 40 personnel in artillery and small arms firing on the line of control between the 7th and the 10th of May.
India's strikes on air bases wasn't just about destroying physical assets. It was about rewriting the rules of engagement. In Prime Minister Narendra Modi's words, we will enter their homes and eliminate them without giving them a chance to escape.
आपने पाकिस्तानी फौज को भी बता दिया है, पाकिस्तान में ऐसा कोई ठिकाना नहीं है जहां बैठकर आतंकवादी चैन की सांस ले सके। हम घर में घुसकर मारेंगे। पाकिस्तान में इतना डीप आतंक के अड्डों को टारगेट किया, सिर्फ 20-25 मिनट के भीतर सीमा पार लक्ष्यों को भेदना, बिल्कुल पिन पॉइंटेड टारगेट्स को हिट करना, ये सिर्फ एक मॉडर्न टेक्नोलॉजी से लेस प्रोफेशनल फोर्स ही कर सकती है। ये नया भारत है। ये भारत शांति चाहता है, लेकिन अगर मानवता पर हमला होता है तो ये भारत युद्ध के मोर्चे पर दुश्मन को मिट्टी में मिलाना भी अच्छी तरह जानता है।
Indian officials reiterated that all strategic objectives of Operation Sindoor had been met militarily and politically. Operation Sindoor shattered Pakistan's air dominance myth, exposed its military terror nexus, and sent a resounding message to the world. India will not tolerate cross-border terrorism. With diplomatic support firming up behind New Delhi, India now plans to present evidence of Pakistan's complicity in terrorism to the UN Sanctions Committee, seeking to blacklist the Resistance Front, the group that claimed the Pahalgam attack. India's counter-terror doctrine has changed, and in the post-Sindoor South Asia, the strategic balance now tilts decisively in New Delhi's favor. In a decisive escalation of its counter-terrorism strategy, India has intensified its crackdown on Pakistan-sponsored terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir. The back-to-back successes of Operation Sindoor and Operation Keller have not only neutralized a series of deadly terror plots, but have also exposed the persistent and dangerous nexus between Islamabad and terror outfits operating in the valley. A report.
Amid growing tensions between India and Pakistan, Indian security forces have intensified their counter-terrorism operation in Jammu and Kashmir, striking hard against Pakistan-sponsored terrorism. In yet another major success in Nadir village of Tral in the Pulwama district, 3 terrorists affiliated with Pakistan-based Jaish-e-Mohammed were gunned down following specific intelligence input. Earlier, under Operation Keller, the Indian Army neutralized 3 Lashkar-e-Taiba terrorists in the dense forest of Shukur Keller in Shopian. Among the slain terrorists were Shahid Kude and Adnan Safidar, both locals whose houses were demolished by authorities after the April 22nd Pahalgam attack that claimed 26 innocent lives, including women and children visiting the popular tourist destination. This encounter marks the second major milestone of the year in Kashmir anti-terror operations, showcasing the effectiveness of India's intelligence-led swift action doctrine.
This operation that has been carried out, a list has been made of 14 terrorists who are there, who are operating over there in these regions, and out of those 14, 6 have been eliminated by now. And we are sure that by the time passes in another week or 2, the rest of the 9 would also be eliminated. Now the problem over here is that some of these terrorists, they are getting support from some underground and overground workers, and that is how they are able to hide themselves, or I would say move from one place to another. That is also being taken care of, because now the security forces have realized that the overground underground network has to be smashed totally, and people are now coming out against this. And that is how, if you see these 3 terrorists in Pulwama, how they were killed is that information was given by the civilians to the police, Jammu Kashmir police, which then later on led to a cordon search operation. The same thing happened in village Killer. So once the people come out against all these terrorists, we are sure that these operations that are anti-terror operations of India will be very, very successful.
The ongoing offense is a part of wider counter-terrorism blueprint. Just a week ago, India launched Operation Sindoor on May 7th, targeting 9 terror camps in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. This came in retaliation to the Pahalgam massacre. The precise airstrike, carried out with surgical accuracy, destroyed terror infrastructure that had long enjoyed Pakistan's state protection. These were the very sites where terrorists were trained, armed, and pushed across the line of control by the Pakistan intelligence agencies. This marks a turning point in India's security doctrine from defensive posture to proactive dismantling of threats across the LOC.
Operation Sindoor was launched specifically targeting the terrorists and their infrastructure in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Jammu Kashmir. This has been very, very successful in the sense that we have managed to hit 9 of their big bases over there, training camps, plus their infrastructure, plus their other residential areas of all the terrorists over there. Now, if you come to see, the Pakistan, though it acknowledges only 100, but if you take a safe estimate of about 50 terrorists in each camp, so that means about 450 to 500 terrorists have been eliminated, which is a very vast number. The other success in this operation is the calibrated and the precision strikes that have been done by the Air Force, and which has ensured that there has been no collateral damage.
Despite mounting international criticism, Pakistan continues to offer diplomatic cover and material support to terror groups like Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed. It not only denies culpability but actively fosters an ecosystem of radicalization and anti-India rhetoric through its staged machinery. The recent operation in the Jammu and Kashmir is seen as a continuation of India's stepped-up counter-terrorism campaign in the valley, reinforcing the zero-tolerance approach to cross-border terrorism. Operation Killer also unfolds the backdrop of renewed ceasefire fragility between India and Pakistan. The recent weeks have witnessed cross-border shelling and drone incursion, prompting India to raise its security posture along the line of control. Security forces have launched massive combing operation across South Kashmir and Kishtwar, rounding off dozens of overground workers. Sleeper cell have long been the backbone of terror operations in the valley, often acting on instructions relayed from across the border. The success of Operation Sindoor, followed swiftly by Operation Killer, reflects India's evolving counter-terrorism strategy, proactive, intelligence-driven, and unforgiving. The Indian Army's new doctrine is clear: preempt threats, strike hard, and pursue perpetrators beyond borders if needed. Discoordinated efforts also expose Pakistan's lie on international platforms, where it claims to be a victim of terror while harboring the very infrastructure that sustains it.
A dramatic political shift is unfolding in South Asia. The hashtag Republic of Balochistan announced is making waves across social media, reigniting a decades-long independence struggle and putting fresh international focus on Pakistan's repressive tactics in its restive province. Baloch leaders have openly declared independence from Pakistan, accusing Islamabad of carrying out a slow-burning genocide in the mineral-rich but conflict-torn region. A report.
A major political and security development has gripped South Asia as the hashtag Republic of Balochistan announced trends widely across social media platforms. The viral movement follows a bold and declaration by Baloch leaders, including prominent activist Mir Yar Baloch, who publicly proclaimed Balochistan's independence from Pakistan. The declaration, made through digital platforms and video statements, has intensified unrest in the already volatile region and triggered new debate among geopolitical observers. Baloch leader Mir Yar Baloch asserted that Balochistan was never a part of Pakistan. Citing a long history of air bombings and forced disappearances and genocide by the Pakistani state, he declared Balochistan's independence. In a series of tweets on X, he urged the Indian media to stop referring to the Baloch people as Pakistan's own. He emphasized that Balochistan had already declared independence in 1947 when the British left the subcontinent. He further appealed to both India and the United Nations to recognize Balochistan as an independent state. Meanwhile, in a video statement, Dr. Allah Nazar Baloch, the leader of Balochistan Liberation Front, also appealed to the UN, India and global civil society groups to declare Pakistan's spy agency ISI a terrorist organization. As he highlighted, Pakistani establishment uses a fabricated narrative to discredit the Baloch struggle.
हर फाशिस्ट रियासत दुनिया की तमाम तारीख को देखें, जब उनको अंदरूनी तौर पर कमज़ोर होना पड़ता है, जैसा कि बलोच जंग आज़ादी के हीरोज़ सरमचार और बलोच सोशल एक्टिविस्ट मासूम इनोसेंट जो आज आपने इसको पुट किया है बिहाइंड द बार, मेरे ख्याल में तो हर वक्त अपने लिए एक दुश्मनी ढूंढती है। तो रियासत की अंदर कोकलाहट है, उस अखलाकी तौर पर शिकस्त खा चुकी है, लिहाजा वो ऐसे नाजेबा और गैर मौज़ब हरकतें कर रही है रियासत पंजाब कि जी बलोच शौनिस्ट हैं, बलोच एक्सट्रीमिस्ट हैं। जी नहीं, न बलोच शौनिस्ट है न एक्सट्रीमिस्ट है। हम इंसानियत दोस्त हैं, आज़ादी पसंद हैं और अपनी आज़ादी के लिए लड़ रहे हैं।
The Baloch Liberation Army has claimed responsibility for a wave of coordinated attacks targeting Pakistani military convoys, checkpoints, and key infrastructure. These operations, the BLA says, are part of a renewed strategic phase in their long-standing armed resistance. The group says the assaults are part of a renewed phase in its long-standing campaign for Baloch self-determination. Baloch activists believe the intensification of these attacks coincides with broader public disillusionment in the region, where enforced disappearances, extrajudicial killings, and suppression of dissent have created deep societal scars.
The cost the Baloch people have paid under this occupation, and they're still paying, it's a huge one, because they have been targeted. They've been targeted in ways people cannot imagine. People are being abducted, people are being tortured, they're being killed, people are receiving mutilated dead bodies of their loved ones. Their mass graves, they're unearthing in Balochistan. Baloch women and children and elderlies are being subject to the enforced disappearances, arbitrary detentions. They are being targeted in the police custody. Recently, as we can see, the Baloch Ekjehti Committee, a civil rights movement, is being targeted because of them being vocal, demanding their right, demanding, supporting the people, the families of enforcedly disappeared persons. And in response to that, the Pakistani state have detained Dr. Marang Baloch and other leader of Baloch Ekjehti Committee. So this shows the mindset of the Pakistani state.
Baloch human rights activists warn that the crisis extends beyond Pakistan's borders, affecting Baloch communities in neighboring Iran as well, where similar state-led repression tactics are employed.
In both Iran and Pakistan, the Baloch face extreme forms of repression, from extrajudicial killings and enforced disappearances to execution and systemic discriminations. This violation deny our people even the most basic rights and opportunity for development. This situation has also forced tens of thousands of Baloch to leave their homeland in search of safety, only to face new hardship and vulnerabilities as refugees in other parts of the world.
Strategically located and resource-rich, Balochistan remains one of the most underdeveloped and militarized provinces of Pakistan. It also serves as the critical geographic spine of China's multi-billion-dollar China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, a flagship project under the Belt and Road Initiative. But far from benefiting the local population, CPEC has exacerbated land grabs, forced displacements, and resource exploitation, fueling local resentment against both Islamabad and Beijing. For decades, Baloch armed groups have fought for self-determination, while civil society activists have turned to global platforms to amplify their voices, particularly as mainstream Pakistani media continues to black out or distort their narrative. Despite the risk of persecution, the Baloch diaspora and online resistance movements have grown stronger, using digital tools to document human rights abuses and lobby for international attention.
Once hailed as the party that delivered independence, Awami League in Bangladesh finds itself completely sidelined by an unelected interim government. Authorities insist it's about national security, but critics see a broader attempt to erase opposition and rewrite history. As the country stands at a crossroads, the coming days could determine the future of its democracy. A report.
Bangladesh's political crisis deepens as the interim government has imposed a sweeping ban on the Awami League, the party that led the nation to independence. The move is raising alarm, with critics calling it a dangerous step toward authoritarian rule. The announcement came during a press briefing by law advisor Asif Nazrul, who cited the party's alleged involvement in last year's deadly unrest that claimed several lives. The decision, framed as a national security measure, is the most drastic political action since the interim administration took power.
বাংলাদেশের আওয়ামী লীগ ও তার নেতাদের বিচার কার্য সম্পন্ন না হওয়া পর্যন্ত দেশের নিরাপত্তা ও সার্বভৌমত্ব রক্ষা, জুলাই আন্দোলনের নেতাকর্মীদের নিরাপত্তা এবং আন্তর্জাতিক অপরাধ ট্রাইব্যুনালের বাদী ও সাক্ষীদের সুরক্ষার জন্য সন্ত্রাস বিরোধী আইনের অধীনে সাইবার স্পেস সহ আওয়ামী লীগের যাবতীয় কার্যক্রম নিষিদ্ধ করার সিদ্ধান্ত গ্রহণ করা হয়েছে।
While the government justifies the ban on legal grounds, critics argue it targets a party deeply woven into Bangladesh's national identity, the very force behind its independence from Pakistan in 1971. Tensions had been building for weeks. On May 9, a massive protest march converged on the residence of interim government chief Muhammad Yunus, demanding the Awami League be outlawed. The caretaker government's rapid response within just 24 hours has led many to believe the ban was pre-planned. In response, the Awami League issued a defiant statement through its verified Facebook page, labeling the caretaker administration illegal and accusing it of using the judiciary for political revenge.
এই যে আওয়ামী লীগের নিষিদ্ধের যে দাবিটি সেটি রাজনৈতিক দলের হলো, পরবর্তীতে কিন্তু এটি একটি গণদাবিতে রূপান্তরিত হয়। অর্থাৎ বাংলাদেশের আপামর ছাত্র জনতা কিন্তু আওয়ামী লীগের নিষিদ্ধের দাবিতে রাজপথে স্বতঃস্ফূর্তভাবে অংশগ্রহণ করে এবং আজকে আপামর ছাত্র জনতার আওয়ামী লীগের নিষিদ্ধের মাধ্যমে আপামর ছাত্র জনতার বিজয় হয়েছে বলে আমরা মনে করছি।
The ban on the Awami League marks an unprecedented chapter in Bangladesh's political history, not only for dismantling a dominant party, but for sidelining the very force that led the nation to independence. As tensions escalate and public outrage grows, the world watches a fragile democracy teeter on the edge. What began as a transitional caretaker government is now facing mounting scrutiny over its legitimacy, its intentions, and its future.
And with that, we come to the end of this edition of Newsweek South Asia. We'll be back next week with more news, views, and analysis from the subcontinent. Meanwhile, do keep writing to us at nwsa@anin.com. This is Shivangi Mishra signing off on behalf of the entire production team of Newsweek South Asia. Goodbye and take care.